of me wasn't kidding after you finished the joy music and I said we can go right into the peace song. Because you filled me that much, and I felt that you filled the hearts and the souls of everyone else that much. And I think every time we sing these songs, we get them deeper into our hearts, and we're actually remembering to remember. The whole challenge for us is forgetting who we are, whose we are, forgetting that we have every reason to be glad, forgetting that singing and dancing is good for the soul. So you fed me. And in light of how late we started, I am led to just be briefer than I generally can be. I want to give us food for thought. I will begin by asking a question, which you don't need to answer out loud. You can just either raise your hand or you can just be in your own head and heart about it. And the question is what is happening in our country and in our world in times like these, is it worrisome to you? Does it make you a little afraid about what's going on and what may be going on? Do you ever find yourself catastrophizing that the ball seems to be rolling in a negative direction and doesn't seem to be stopping? Or the random shootings, events that have you a little paranoid for yourself going to the mall or to the movies or sending your children off to school, which we'll be doing in a week? Do the things and circumstances of the world shake you? Are they fear engendering? That's my first question. My second question, if you are somewhat afraid and worried, why? It's for you to answer inside of you. Why are you fearful? Why are you worried? Why do you believe that things are getting out of control and it doesn't seem like it's stopping? And my next question, if you know why you're afraid and you acknowledge that you are afraid, my next question is, who or what do you believe is putting you in a position of being afraid? Who or what do you believe is putting you in a position of worrying? Who or what do you believe is causing you to be anything other than peaceful and joyful and glad and grateful? Think about who or what you think that is for you. I know that different people have different answers to these questions. These are questions that did not originate with me. I first ran into these questions in the Bible, and these questions were posed to a number of people by Yeshua ben Yosef, Ishio, or most of us just say Jesus. These are the questions he asked of the people around him. He asked questions of the Jews that were his disciples and who gathered around him, like, why are you afraid? Are you afraid? And they answered with answers like, who wouldn't be afraid with their country occupied? Who wouldn't be afraid with all the do's and don'ts? Who wouldn't be afraid when they just snatch us up anytime they feel like it and crucify us on the main road into Jerusalem? Who wouldn't be afraid with the Roman taxes going up more and more and more, and we have less and less and less? So I did not originate the question, are you afraid? Nor did I originate the question, if you are afraid, why are you afraid? And I didn't originate the question, who or what is it that has you afraid? I attended a healing circle at Hope Church, the church I pastored for 20 years in Massachusetts. Since Hope Church has always been a church, it's a community church, and therefore it has no direct umbrella affiliation with any larger organization. So basically, Hope Church, over the almost 50 years, well, I first walked into Hope Church in January of 1970, and I worshiped there under my father for 18 years before I served as pastor for 20 years. And since I retired, I am welcome to preach there once a month, and I attend whatever services they give. But because it's a community church and doesn't have to stick to any set of rules or any set of principles, Hope Church is, the flavor of it depends upon who is in charge. So when my father was in charge, it was more like a Baptist service, but I had introduced him to some New Thought concepts. A Course in Miracles, actually somebody gave him the 3 books of A Course in Miracles, and he flicked through them for a few days and then gave them to me and said, "Carly, this is you." And he was thrilled when he came to visit me when I was 21 in New York. He came to check me out because I was there to be an actor, but he saw a little production I did on a Saturday night, and he was thrilled. And I said, "If you think I thrilled you tonight, you just wait till I take you to Eric Butterworth in the morning." And Eric Butterworth, at that time, there were about 2,500 people attending his services, and he still had the sharpness of his mind and wit, and he blew my dad away. So Dad became a Baptist minister who stretched, he was on the bridge between the Baptist way and the New Thought metaphysical way. My mother was a Pentecostal. That was my upbringing. Mom became a Pentecostal who loved Eric Butterworth and loved the 5 principles and loved unity. So Dad had a Baptist feel, moving into, I would say, 2/3 Baptist, 1/3 unity-like. After his retirement, I turned the church into basically a unity church. And I was blown away by how many people in the small area of Massachusetts and Western Mass were open to unity teachings, to the non-condemnation, to the insistence that the power is in you. My dad, when he was the pastor, the congregation at one point was up to about 200 people, and my dad was ill the last couple of years of his life. And the final year of his life, he wasn't able to preach. He had a trach in his throat. And the congregation got smaller and smaller. By the time my father died, there were about 50 people coming each Sunday rather than 200. When Johnny and I came from Florida and I took over the pastorship, we had always come to my dad's church to do our concerts, and I do workshops and I do week-long seminars. And so we had a huge following, but I didn't know how huge, because the second Sunday that I was the pastor, we had to go to 2 Sunday services and a Wednesday service, not including other events. We had about 750 people coming between both services and the Wednesday service. The church only holds about 300 people, but it was packed and jammed. On many Sundays, weather permitting, we couldn't fit any more people into the church, and people would go out and count, and someone would say, "There's 114 people standing outside of the church in our service, getting everything through the open windows. I was blown away because my thought about New England was, are they going to be okay with this difference from tradition? It's hard for people when you come up against their tradition. It's really hard for people when you come up against what they have been taught to believe and do believe. I was blatant. I did things that I don't know how somebody didn't just beat me up after service. People love and cherish their Bibles. And I would hold the Bible up and I would say, you think there's power in this book of words? It's powerless. The only power it has is the power you give it. You're the power. And at that time, you know, it was when everybody was all into crystals, quartz crystals and quartz healing. It was so amazing. People would come to church and, oh my God, they would be so freaked out. Oh my God, I can't believe it. What's wrong? I left my crystal at home on my dresser. And I would go, a crystal is a rock. You are a God. And so the word got out that this young pup is teaching things, truth, and in a way that none of us have ever seen before. So it was always spilled over. When I retired, my sister Crystal became the pastor. Crystal, she lived one of the roughest lives that I've ever witnessed someone live. She created I was molested beginning at 7. Crystal was molested beginning at 3. She created a continuous line of men to molest her whole life. And I mean, they molested her. This is an open confession. I once put a contract out on a guy who beat her so bad and hospitalized her. Thank God I was able to take it off before they found him. It's so amazing how God works. This guy who was always around, I knew which bar he was hanging out at, I knew where he lived. He disappeared somehow for 3 days, and the 2 guys I hired from Providence, Rhode Island, not to kill him, but to do worse than he did to my sister. And thank God, it was like one day it was like coming out of a dream. I went, what am I thinking? This is not who I am. This serves no purpose. But Crystal believed, at some point when I retired, Crystal had a conversation with a traditional fundamental person, a fundamental minister, who said to her, I believe that all of this abuse and stuff and the challenges that are happening with you and your ups and downs and depression, I believe all of the icky stuff going on in your life, in your mind, in your heart, and in your world is because you followed your brother Carlos out of fundamentalism and into new thought metaphysical teachings. Reverend Crystal, I think when he retires, you need to go back to strictly Jesus and strictly the Bible. And you need to proclaim it to the congregation so that these people don't think they're going to get the same thing from you that they got from him. And she believed her. Crystal called me and said, I'm sorry, Carlos, but I really do think that maybe the problem is that I tried to believe what you believed. I no longer think it's right. I think God's mad at me because I didn't stay Pentecostal and traditional and Bible. And she got up on her first Sunday and told the congregation, my whole ministry that I will be bringing to you all for the rest of my time as your pastor can be broken down into 2 words. Jesus saves. And so many people left, and those who stayed began to become more fundamental, more Jesus saves, only. That's all you need to know. Jesus saves. Whatever the problem, take it to Jesus. Don't fight your battle, let Jesus fight it. You don't need to count on yourself, count on Jesus. So, because they invited me to be there once a month, I still bring me. I have been asked by Crystal, and now that Crystal is dead, I have been asked by my other sister, my only living sibling now, who governs the running of the church. I have been asked, can you not do unity today? And I go, you know, that's such a silly question. I don't do unity. I am unity.
Okay. Amen.
You have a choice. If you don't want unity, you don't want me. And trust me, I can build that 3rd Sunday somewhere else. And so they allowed me initially to be me. And so there are a lot of people who only come on the 3rd Sunday because they want that unity. And there are people who don't come because they don't want that unity. So anyway, so I'm always kind of startled when I'm there. Periodically I'm startled by overhearing or witnessing someone's belief system. So the 2 women who lead the healing circle, which is on Wednesday nights once a month, so this past Wednesday it was the healing circle, and I went. It began by one of the women saying, we are really counting on Jesus joining us this evening, because never has there been a time where he is more needed, because the devil is busy. The devil is moving to and fro on the earth. It is so clear to see, seeking whom he may devour. These are scriptures, by the way, in case you don't know that. She's not making these words up. And these are the last and evil days. It's so clear. The enemy has people, young people, killing other people. The enemy is bringing about a division in the races. The enemy has us again on the verge of war and again on the verge of a possible recession. The enemy is busy. She went on for about 10 minutes talking about the devil, the enemy, demons of darkness, the dark forces, and that's why she's scared. And that's why we should be scared. It reminds me of when Bush Jr. was our president. His message to America was, be afraid. Be very, very afraid. In contrast to an earlier president who said you have nothing to fear but fear yourself. So basically what the first president, FDR, was saying is, things look scary, don't they? Look at what's happening in our country and in the world. Scary stuff. And you have nothing to fear but fear itself. Another president, look at what's going on in our country, in the world. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. Either one of these choices are choices we've made. So when Jesus says, why do you fear? At one point he says to his disciples, O ye of little faith, why do you fear? These cats are fishermen. They have been through God knows how many storms of every type, in their lifetime and in their business. They're on a boat. Jesus is trying to get some sleep down below. He's been preaching for days. He's trying to get away from the crowd. Everywhere he goes, people see him and come flocking around him. He gets exhausted. He goes, I can't do this I need breaks to plug in to my Father. I can only feed the people with a cup running over. Get me on this boat and let me get some rest. But this storm, the last thing they want to do is wake him up. But they become terrified. It must have been a trip for Peter in particular, because Peter was all about his ego, about being such a strong man, a fearless man, a powerful man. He must have had his tail between his legs when he went to wake up Jesus and said, we're afraid. We're very, very afraid. If you know the story, you know Jesus wakes up, gets up, faces the storm right in the eye, flat-footed, looks at the lightning, looks at the thunder, looks at the rolling, crashing waves, and Jesus goes, peace, be still. And immediately the storm stopped. And then he turns to his disciples and says, O ye of little faith, why do you fear? From the time I was a little kid until I was about 24 years old, I thought, I wonder why Jesus, okay, to ask them, why are you afraid? That's cool, but why couldn't he be nice about it? Why couldn't he just say, oh, I get it, but why are you afraid? Why did he have to say, oh, ye of little faith? Why did he put them down? That's not good teaching. At 24, I had a revelation. He wasn't putting them down. He wasn't saying, oh, you ain't got no faith. He was saying, you have a little faith. So why would you fear? You see, he had already taught them, you don't need a whole lot of faith. You just need a little faith. He said, faith the size of a grain of mustard seed, the smallest seed of any plant. If you have faith the size of a grain of mustard seed, you can say to any mountain in your life, get out of my way, and the mountain will move. It's believing. So I think what he really was saying, oh, Hugh, have you forgotten you have a little faith? And have you forgotten what I taught you? That a little faith can move any mountain in your mind, in your heart, in your relationships, in your finances, in your world. So why would you be afraid? Sitting in the healing circle, every time the facilitator would say, the devil's really busy, 2/3 of the people would go, amen to that. Ain't he though? Oh, Lord, child. His demons are everywhere. Ain't they though? Everywhere you turn. The darkness is growing. Whew, tell me about it. Preach. And I sat there going, you got a little faith. Why are you afraid? And why have you made up the devil, demons, dark forces to put it on? Who is causing you to fear? What is causing you to fear? There's nothing new under the sun. if you tell the truth about it and look back about it and think about your life and think about history, her story, your story, my story, all stories, you will see that there are always challenges. There's always something you're up against. There are always what looks like something working against the greater good. And so a lot of people love to believe that it's the devil. And people who don't believe it's the devil come up with a handful of human beings who represent the devil in the flesh. I did that for a while. I tore out a page in a newspaper. There was Bush and Cheney. I said, look into these eyes. Is that not the eyes of the devil? I'm a new thought boy. Someone to blame. It's got to be somebody else or something else that's got me shaking in my boots. Got me catastrophizing. I've said before, I will continue to say, you always are exercising faith. Either faith in a negative outcome or faith in a positive outcome. If what's going on in the world, the random shootings, the economy, the appearance of widening of divisions between races and cultures, so much stone throwing, so much fighting, poverty, inequity, unfairness, prejudice, racism, sexism, people defiling the prayer houses of the Jews, the prayer houses of the others. It's always gone on. If I'm afraid, why am I afraid? And what am I afraid of? I have a little faith, but it fluctuates like a flashlight. Sometime I shine my faith on a belief that all things are working together for good. Sometime I shine my flashlight light with my faith on it looks like the crap is hitting the fan. Sometime my faith light is shined on, there is nothing to fear but fear itself. Sometimes I put that beam of light on, be afraid. Be very, very afraid. I don't know what they're going to think of me the next third Sunday when I go to Hope Church to preach, because I'm going to tell them the devil ain't doing nothing. God is. This appearance of division, the wars, the rumors of wars, the people not getting along, the inequity, who's doing that? The only creator of the universe there is, God. And baby, I'm going to bring scripture to back me up. Where it says, when you see these things, know that it is I, your God, who am stirring up this world. And then goes on to explain why in the scriptures. Because I have to get you to a place where you are no longer dependent upon this world. Where your joy and peace are not dependent upon there being peace in the Middle East or in your neighborhood or for the gangs to go away. and for the drugs to stop flowing. You believe who you are is based on the world. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to get you to a point, by hook or a crook, kicking and screaming, if necessary. I'm going to get you to a place where you go, I can't depend upon anything in the world. There is no safe place. It used to be going to a bad neighborhood, something might happen to you. Now it's go to church, something might happen to you. Go to the movies, there is no safety in the world. That's where God wants us to return to the conscious understanding that our only peace is dependent upon not what's out there, because it's not dependable. The only thing dependable is this rock, the solid foundation within us, the meeting place of the Creator and the created ones. It says so in the scripture I'm going to bring to Hope next third Sunday. I'm so excited I don't know what to do. I feel like a mischievous little kid going, I can't wait to get up there and snatch their alibis out of their hands and stop them from invoicing the devil. Who's doing all this? There is only one presence, one power in the universe, and in my life, your life, all life. And it's God the good, omnipotent, all power, omnipresent, everywhere present, omniscient, all knowing. But Reverend Carlos, how come you added that part, God the good? If God is in charge of the falling away of our stability in the world, how can you call that good? Well, it's like weaning a baby off of a dependency for a blanket to feel safe. It's like weaning a baby from feeling they'll never not cry through the night without mommy in the room. Oh, it broke my heart. And it broke my ex-wife's heart. The first week of not running in to get our son, when he cried, wanting to be nowhere but sleeping with us in our bed. Now, we could have let him do that until he was 46. It wouldn't have been good. It was good to know he will cry because he is scared and he believes something is going to happen to me. But that's how he's going to find out he's okay, he can sleep, and he doesn't need to be clinged to. God knows what we need. And clearly, it's to realize our safety cannot be found in the things of this earth. A Course in Miracles, Jesus speaking in A Course in Miracles, pushes that point again and again and again, again and again and again, because it's the truth that sets us free. That's my short little talk.
All right.